I wanted to do something spooky for the month of October, so I decided to do a video on this really interesting first-person shooter game called Nosferatu, The Wrath of Malachi. It was a total blind buy. I picked it up on GOG for probably like 99 cents a few months ago, just because I thought, hey, this is going to be great for the month of October. It has some old first-person shooter jank to it, but the atmosphere is top-notch. The graphics and sound design really help create this eerie classic horror mood. It's very gothic, which I like, and it has a bit of that uncanny valley effect to it, mainly because of how old it is and how primitive some of the things in it are. There's some CGI cutscenes which are very charming by today's standards. Maybe at 2 in the morning, if you were playing this game back in the early 2000s, they would have been pretty scary, but by today's standards, they're just charming. They just ooze that gothic classic horror charm that I love so much. The game was released in North America on October 21st in 2003, and it was developed by Swedish video game developer Idle FX. I looked into Idle FX to see what else they've done, and I couldn't find all that much, but on Moby Games, I was able to find that they made a couple other Windows games like FBI Hostage Rescue, a game called Loophole, and then a couple of words I'm not even going to try to pronounce, Gast, and then Drake of the 99 Dragons, which is a game I'm actually familiar with, and apparently it's terrible. I had a hard time putting my finger on exactly what I was loving about the game so much, because like I said, it does have quite a bit of early 2000s jank to it. It's not a game that I think I would recommend to just anybody. The weapon selection was fun. Not the widest variety of weapons, but like a decent amount for the era. I did find that weapons like there's like a musket or a blunderbuss, and then like a flintlock pistol, they kind of felt exactly the same to me. But you also have a cross and holy water and a cane sword and a machine gun, and they all felt unique because of how different they are. Like obviously holy water is going to feel a lot different than a machine gun, and it was cool too because certain weapons would be more effective against certain enemies. You know, like the vampires are obviously pretty weak to the cross and holy water, and you can also drive a stake into their heart, which is a lot of fun and very satisfying. But your little 6-shooter or whatever is not going to be getting the job done necessarily. One thing I wanted to point out that the game is not an adaptation of Dracula, like F.W. Murnau's film Nosferatu. It follows its own unique story. I read repeatedly that the game is procedurally generated, but I think I did like 5 or 6 runs. I didn't beat it every time. It's actually a really short game. If you just had a day and where you just could set 4 or 5 hours aside, you could beat it in that time easily. But I started it up, restarted it, gave it a couple different playthroughs, tried out the other difficulties, and despite it claiming to be procedurally generated, the only thing that I think is procedurally generated is where the items will spawn, I think. Because the layout of the castle seemed exactly the same to me no matter what, and the location of who I was rescuing also seemed to be the same in all of those playthroughs. Again, I didn't beat it 4 or 5 times, I only beat it once, but I did like start a playthrough, so maybe the early game is the same, but once you get into the later stages of the castle and the later stages of the gameplay, like then you'll start to notice the map being slightly different. I also could just be stupid, and I could be walking into a room and being like, yeah, this looks the same, and just assuming that it was, but really it wasn't. One of the things I liked about the game is that throughout it you can find encyclopedias of the undead, which provide some pretty chilling and interesting insight into the monsters that you'll come across in the game. It appears that the game has 2 endings, although one of them is kind of just a death ending, and I did find that the actual ending was somewhat frustrating, though I won't get into spoilers here. Also a nice touch is that it does the Doom thing where your little character portrait in the bottom corner there changes depending on where your health is at. The voice acting in it is kind of on par with the rest of the quality, I guess. You know, it's kind of corny.
Ah, James! The pain! I can't take it much longer. Please, bring Dr. Amersfield.
It's kind of funny, it's kind of dated, but there's still something about it that fits and adds to that atmosphere. There were some minor annoyances, like I said a couple of times now. This does have early 2000s FPS shooter jank to it. Things like the friendly AI, like they're pretty stupid, and you do have to do some hand-holding just to get them through the castle. I also found that regardless of what difficulty you were playing on, and don't get me wrong, the game is challenging, but it's one of those games where once you kind of figure out the trick every boss fight gets kind of easy. Overall, I had a really fun time with it, and like I said, you can get it dirt cheap, and for people who like classic horror and who like early first-person shooters, I don't think this quite qualifies as a boomer shooter, but for those of you who enjoy these kind of games, I do recommend it, especially for this time of year, you know? So that's Nosferatu, Wrath of Malachi, really fun time. I definitely recommend giving it a try if you get a chance to.